All right. What's going on, you guys? I am checking. Okay, it is your boy 3 Stacks in this thing, baby, representing TKOG. And I decided to update Virtual Worlds because I ended up taking Virtual Worlds and Shitballs to locals this week. Got third place with both. Feeling really good about the Virtual World list. This list I haven't bricked with it. So I had a theory and I had to test it. And this was the theory. So like I'm gonna get right into the profile right after this and a small announcement, right? So my theory was something that I have always believed firmly in when it comes to Virtual Worlds, but most people just don't. And this is why they always brick all the time. Like, instead of playing all the hand traps and the cards that stop your opponent from playing, why not play more cards that let you actually play? Because here's my theory on it. If I open hand traps to stop my opponent from playing, it doesn't matter if I don't have a follow-up play. If I can't play, it doesn't matter how many hand traps I cram in my deck to give me a better going second. If I can't play Yu-Gi-Oh, they don't have to have any disruptions. So technically speaking, they didn't have to have a turn at all. They didn't even have to set up any kind of a board. If I couldn't play, there's nothing that they had to stop because there's nothing that I can actually do. So I really hope that rings a bell in you guys' head because I decided to actually play more consistency cards and more cards that unbreak my hands as opposed to more hand traps. And I decided to go with the firm neutralizers, a one card that can solve multiple problems as opposed to a silly Ash or Valor or even a Gamma or an Impermanence. Cards that can all be played through in the same turn and that can also be hit by cards like Triple Tactics Talents and Cross Out Designator. So I have a very, very good theory and it is perfect. It actually is true. I actually tested it and confirmed it. So to all the Virtual World players that are playing a crap ton of hand traps and are always bricking or either not bricking, if you're not bricking, you're just drawing one name and dying to an Ash Blossom or a Ghost Bolt all the time, you definitely want to consider this list, take this pretty seriously, and just hear me out and hear what I have to say because I never bricked with this list. This is the most consistent list I've made, and it's crazy going first, it's crazy going second. The thing is with the Virtual World engine is like, its engine's almost as good as Shadal's in the sense that you can go second just as good as you can go first. You can use this engine to just break boards. You have a vast, a vast diversity in your extra deck toolbox and the utility that you get from spot removal being sending, popping, and non-targeting, non-destruction removal. It's pretty crazy. This deck is the stones. It's really, really good at what it does. And I feel personally that this is the list. Like, this is the way to go moving forward. Like, this is how I'm going to play Virtual Worlds. It turned out great. I got third place. I got just, I had one draw, which kind of sucked, but it is what it is. And yeah, I just want to get into the list. So if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a dislike if you didn't. Click the notification bell if you are going to subscribe because it's pointless to subscribe if you miss like all my uploads. So I definitely recommend that. And if you want to support my channel, if you're like, hey, this guy's going somewhere, I really want to help him out, please consider backing me on Patreon or becoming a Discord channel member. So with all of that said, let's do this. So for starters, we have 3 copies of Lulu. I didn't get the reprints yet, so I don't have like all the sexy VWs. We have 3 Lilis, 3 GGs, and 3 copies of Lao Lao. One thing I will say is if they printed one more name that had an effect to reveal, target, and send, this deck would be way more consistent. I think it would just be up on the echelon that it needs to be. Because this is still a tier 1 deck. But the issue that all Virtual World players has is the bricking, right? But the thing is, the composition of your main deck actually has a huge dictating factor in your consistency ratios. So like, being that you can only play these 12 names and you have to like draw them plus a card to target, you always have to draw 2 specific cards. So what you want to do is play more cards that let you deck them to see those, and more cards that let you draw into those cards, and more cards that are invisible kind of upstart goblin-esque cards. They're like right here in limbo, where like they are a piece of cardboard, but they're just the next card that you're supposed to see. And those are better than hand traps. I know it sounds crazy, but they just are. So outside of the 2 Nian, the other starters that let me see the best cards in the deck are going to be the 3 Prosperities and 3 Desires. Yes, I'm playing both. And the beauty is, if you draw both of them, at least you drew a play. At least you drew a play. So at least you can actually have a chance to get your engine going, as opposed to drawing none of them at all and bricking. So yeah, I know these conflict, but who cares? And the beauty is, like, if they ask your Desires, your Prosperity safe. So whenever you draw both of these, you should activate Desires first, because if they ash it, you never drew. So then you can just activate Prosperity afterwards. If you Prosperity first and they ash it, you can't even do the Pot of Desires, because Prosperity says you can't activate it the turn that you drew a card. So like, it's like illegal activation basically. Like, the turn you activate Prosperity, you can't just like activate a Pot of Desires. It's not when it resolves, it's just if you activate it. So like, if they ash for Prosperity, you can't just go Desires after, because you already activated it, and ash only negates the effect and not the activation. So we have 3 Prosperity, we have 3 Desires, and 3 Foolish Burial Goods. This is a really big deal, because more often than not, you only see Desires, right? Most lists either play Desires, or they're doing like a 2-2 ratio of 2 of each of these. Max out on these cards. These are the best cards in your deck because they get you to the best cards in your deck. Especially Foolish Burial Goods, it's more of a guaranteed than RNG. So Foolish has the highest chance of allowing you to see your engine. And to counter ignorant arguments of, oh, I don't want to play 3 of these because these are hard ones for turns, or, oh, I don't want to open 2 Foolish Burial Goods, so I'll just play 2, or, why would I play Foolish Burial Goods? Because then when I dump Qinglong off of my next Virtual World, I can't activate it. Here's what I have to say to that. If I didn't open Foolish Burial Goods, I wouldn't be dumping Qinglong off of anything. I wouldn't even be activating Lulu because I bricked. That's the thing. You brick all the time with this deck. You brick. Dude, it happens all the time. Some people are just blessed. They always open Kowloon and Lulu. Good for you, dude. But realistically speaking, this deck has pretty much like a 40% chance of breaking. You almost brick half of the time you're playing this deck, which is really bad in long tournaments. So you want to build your deck to pretty much counter the weakness that it naturally has, right? So Foolish Burial Goods is a guaranteed way to draw your engine. So here's what happens when I'm already able to play when I have goods. I either discard it off Qinglong, or I discard it off Zhan Wu, or I use it to dump Zhan Wu as an extender. So it's either a discard fodder or an extender. There is no worst case scenario. It's always good at all time. The same thing with Prosperity and Desires. You either discard it off Qinglong, or you discard it off Zhan Wu, or you hold it for your next turn. It doesn't matter. The idea is you have to be able to play. And if I'm able to play, I don't care if I draw 3 Prosperities. I don't care. I just care that I get to play. And that's the big deal in this deck. The biggest deal with playing this deck is actually being able to play. This deck doesn't have like the comfort and the benefit that other decks have, where they're just so crazy consistent, like a Drytron deck where you're just always opening a perfectly playable hand. Like, this deck's biggest battle is against itself, and it's just the truth. So I wouldn't want to say like I'm taking your opinion away from you, or invalidating, or saying that your opinion has no value to me, but just, if you think that this is overkill, it's not. I didn't brick a single time, and every time I brick is games that I lose. As long as I can play, like, this deck's crazy. Virtual World's actually really, really insane. This deck's tier 1 material. Like, even without, you know, True King of all Chlamydia, which, you know, may he rest in peace, a long time ago, it's just like, dude, like, Virtual World's a really, really good deck. It's very, very skillful. It's very difficult to pilot, so you definitely want to practice this deck for, like, a couple weeks before you take it anywhere, including locals, because you can mess up with this deck a lot. You can mess up without even knowing that you messed up, because there's like 60 or 70 actual combos that you can do with this deck. It's pretty crazy. Like, there's a lot of different combos. 2-card and 3-card combinations. Every single Virtual World targeting another Virtual World. That's like a crazy amount of combos. Like Lulu plus every target, those are all combos. Lily plus every target, all combos. GG. Lao Lao, and then what you do with those, like what you summon from your extra deck, is what makes it a different combo. So like Lily targeting Yan Yan can have 10, 11 different combos based on what you play in your extra deck and what you choose to summon. So it's like a really, really big deal, you guys. It's a very big deal. So yeah, these cards are the reason why I don't brick. Whenever I draw these, it's really good. Going first, going second, these are must negates kind of, because you Prosperity for 6, people are going to either negate it or just get Dark Ruler, because you're going to reveal a Dark Ruler off of it. Speaking of, now we're going to talk about my going second cards, which are 3 talents and 3 Dark Rulers. This is all I need. Why? Because my engine has going second cards. That's why, buddy. I have Qinglong, and I have Kowloon, and I have Virtual World cards, and I have Prosperities, and I have Foolish Burial Goods, and I have Desires. Believe it or not, your engine is going second cards. Your engine, you're just activating Virtual World cards. Just allows you to not only break boards, but force negates. Not only that, City is pretty crazy. It's an Alta Winda, it's an Alta Kaliga, it outs cards like Crystal Wing, it outs Macabas or Forces. their effects to be utilized, which turns your talents online and you can use talents against them, which is a really big deal. So Qinglong is a really big deal. Kowloon is a really big deal. Dark Ruler talents, these are going second cards. These 12 cards right here. And did you know that these have a higher impact than an Imperm and a Veiler in the same hand? If you draw Imperm and Veiler, Dark Ruler has more impact. Talent has more impact. These cards will break a board as opposed to preventing it from happening. If you're a coward and you just don't think your deck's good enough and your engine's not strong enough to break a board, then you're just going to try your hardest to simplify the game state every single duel. Good luck drawing 3 hand traps and getting hit by a Crossout Designator and a triple tactic talents in the same turn, buddy. And hit by a call by. You know what? I'm just going to call it. They're going to gamma you. And then, after that, you're going to hand trap them. Then they're going to cross out you. And then after that, they're going to talents and look at your hand. Good luck, have fun. So yeah, these are a pretty big deal. As well as the double E-Telly and the call by to sum up the spells. These just make your engine stronger. Call by is really, really crazy. It's very, very good. Funny enough, everything in this deck's recyclable because of Nian Yan. So ideally, like any card that you want to see a second or third time, you want to banish it. So how do you banish it like without like actually banishing it from your grave once it's in your grave? Because like once it's in your grave, it's gone, right? So like you want to set up Shinshin all the time in this deck in the first place. Shinshin is not only a floodgate, but it's a follow-up. It's a really big deal. Shinshin also neutralizes threats itself. It neutralizes Droplet's ability to send cards from the field, which means they're taking a bigger neck to be able to Droplet you. And the other thing is like all your cards that you activate get banished. So if you hit them with the call by on their turn, your call by is going to get banished and you can recycle your call by with your Nian Yan. The same thing goes for your extra deck. You can banish your cards from your extra deck, whether they're being banished by Shinshin's effect on field or Shinshin's effect in grave. And then you can use your Nian Yan to put those cards back. And then you can use your Chuchi to put the Nian Yan back. So that you can always have resources. You can always have follow-ups. You can Pot of Avarice your whole deck. Which is really cool. And finally, we played just 2 Chuchi and 1 copy of Jianwu. This is the perfect ratio. You really don't like drawing these cards. But I will say, I've drawn some pretty busted hands that had Jianwu in them. And it was nuts. It was really nuts. Like, drawing Jianwu is like... Drawing the traps is not bad. But like, drawing Jianwu specifically... It's really crazy. Like when you resolve your Qinglong and then pitch this, it's nuts. Like this lets you play through so much disrupt. That's why sometimes I don't even activate my Nian Yan yet because I'm just waiting or debating, trying to see what disruption they're gonna use. Because like if it's unknown, it's unknown. If it's in the back row, like you have to play around TT. Like just because you can resolve Lili and Lili you can't get Torrential Tributed when you resolve Lili doesn't mean you're not gonna get TT that turn. So like, yeah, Jianwu is pretty crazy, you guys. Like, I'll hold off on the Nian, and then this card becomes like a Lao Lao, which is really crazy. So yeah, that's the main deck. And honestly, it's 41 cards, so you could say cut a card and make it a perfect 40, but I'm not going to cut Call By just to make this a perfect 40 card deck. This makes a big deal having this in the main deck. Call By is really good, because even though you have all these consistency cards, you still will have hands that will lose to 1 or 2 hand traps, just because of the nature of how Virtual Worlds can be sometimes. This is a good deck, but it's not always going to treat you good. You know, it's not always going to make you feel good for playing it, and it's just the truth. So let's get into the extra deck. We have Zulkin, Shin, Vermilion, and I'm actually playing the Stellar Wind Wolferate. This card is actually way better than I thought it was. This card's really, really good. It's like it's a card to play around, right? So it's more of an impending threat than a direct threat. Like, it's something that you can neutralize early. But if you cannot neutralize it early, it's something you have to play around. Like Crystal Wing is different, right? Crystal Wing and Shinshin, they're like there, and it's very obvious. Like they're a actual like there's like a threat that you can see, right? That you know that it's there, and you can directly deal with it right now. But this is more of an impending threat. It's something that you have to pretty much orchestrate your whole turn to play around this card. It's kind of like Nibiru and Droplets and Talents. It's like a power play that you have no choice but to respect, and sometimes because you can't really beat the card, it actually forces the entire trajectory of your turn to be played in the tempo of this card that it allows you to play. So you will literally only activate a certain amount of monster effects, unless between one of those monster effects activation, you can put something on board that deals with this, along with everything else that you have. So yeah, this card's really, really nuts. It's like not better than Kaliga. I still play Kaliga and I end on Kaliga over this, but it's another great option. Like, it's really, really good, you guys. It's really, really good. Like, This card's crazy. Like I said, anything that makes you play your entire turn differently, I feel like is just broken. It's like Nibiru, right? Like, you play your whole turn differently, but like with having cross out and talents in the same deck, you know, you can respect Nibiru a little bit less, but with this card, it's just like, it's there, and you have to respect it. It's really good. Juju, Muddy, Coral, and Charge Warrior, phenomenal level 6s. Really, really good. I love going Juju to send, into Fan to banish, and to charge, and then into, Gaia Charger, into Zeus. That's like a really fat interaction with this deck. I do this a lot. I did it against the trap deck that I played against. This card's crazy, right? So when you play against trap decks, you want to summon this as your like first summon a lot of the times. Because not only does this allow you to play around Torrential better, but it gives you a more safe and less vulnerable target for your Virtual World. So like they can't disrupt this unless they like return it to the hand, right? Or like banish it with like a Tri-Brigade Revolt. So this card's really good. Not only that, because it neutralizes threats by itself, it forces cards to either activate or you just get rid of them. And then also because it itself is so protected that it's going to make it a lot harder for them to disrupt the kind of tempo and the flow of your combo. And then we have Gaia, Charger, and Zeus. M7 is a really big deal, as well as Fan. Fan's incredible against decks like Strikers and Shaddolls and the Mirror Match. It's really good against Drytrons. Just being able to banish their crap, it's a big deal. But M7 is probably the best rank 6 in this deck, I would say. I summon this all the time, even on my first turns. This deck gets a lot of follow-up already, but what makes it overwhelming is when you can have 2 to 3 follow-ups on top of a Shinshin coming back with a board that's already so hard to break that if you don't open like a Dark Ruler, you're going to have to like droplets for 2 to 3 to even out the Kaliga plus the Crystal Wing. And then on top of that, you have to break the board after you do that, and then you have to play around the Chuche while you're doing that. And then you have to OTK them, because if you don't OTK, you have the card that you added back off M7, you have the card you added on end phase off GG, you have your Qinglong in graveyard, and you have your Shinshin coming back, which is a really big deal. So you have a lot of follow-up with this deck. This is how you can just outgrind trap decks and just beat them inherently by systematically one-for-one-ing their back rows, taking it, dismantling it, and then forcing their hand, which is really good. Like, you can force their traps with all of your removal cards, and just the nature of this deck being so good going first and going second. Vermilion Dragon Mech being so cracked against trap decks, and Juju, Coral Dragon, and Fan, and Zeus, and Gaia. It's really, really good. And I do believe that Bamboozling Gossip Shadow is very much a necessity. Like, I know Break Sword's a really cool card, but this card comes up a lot more, and it's just way more important, and it protects you. It's really, really good. And also, funny enough, it came up. It actually came up where I used this on my opponent. He was playing a Sky Striker deck with Prosperity, so I Bamboozling Gossip Shadowed his Kagari, and then he Prosperitied, and he forgot that my Bamboozle made him draw, so he couldn't even activate it. Really cool, right? I just wanted to point that out. But yeah, you guys, definitely let me know if you're interested in my list. Let me know if you respect or even agree with my proven theory that playing cards that help you are better than playing cards that hurt your opponent. And inherently, by helping yourself, you are hurting your opponent. I say this all the time. By helping you, you're hurting your opponent, because this deck makes boards that are just way too hard to break. And then if they get broken, if you have to OTK this deck. Like, you kind of have to OTK this deck, or find a way to neutralize its follow-up, because it has a lot coming on the next turn. And sometimes your follow-ups can be more aggressive than your first turn, because you're working with a lot more than you have to start with in the beginning. So yeah, really big deal, you guys. God bless you. Make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. Stay tuned for future content. Have a wonderful day, and let me know how I did in the comment section below. Peace.